Good morning and welcome to another Fast Tracks webinar. This is a weekly event we do every Friday at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, where I go over various topics of the Fast Track software. You can see a list of these events if you go to our website, goftx.com, choose the FTX Lifeline tab at the top of the page, scroll down just a bit and look for the webinar button. Choose that, and that will show you a list of all of our previous webinars, where you can view the recording by choosing that View Recording button, all of our upcoming webinars, where you can choose the Register Now button to be reminded of that webinar, search for previous webinars, as well as sign up for the newsletter to get notified of upcoming webinars and other Fast Tracks news. Today we're going to be going over a feature in the handheld on transfers, and this will be in both the Android and the legacy Windows CE handheld. Now first we're going to look at the Android side, and we're going to look at the permission required to utilize transfers. So when I'm in Director and I go to the Maintenance module, either on my user groups or my employees, whichever method I'm using to provide permissions, under the HH permissions, I want to make sure that I have the transfers toggled on if that employee is to use transfers. In this case, I do have that turned on. So I'm going to now go to the handheld, and you should be able to see this here momentarily. All right, so I've just opened the app up, and I now need to first and foremost make sure that my handheld is pointed to my main machine. Now that main machine is going to be where the database resides. Generally that's going to be a Register 1 machine, but that can vary depending on your environment. So to make sure that I have that pointed correctly, on that main machine, you want to find the local IP address. The easiest way to do that would be on that machine where you know your database resides. Just right-click the Start menu, choose Run, type in CMD, and press Enter or press OK. That will bring up the command prompt. To get that IP address we need, you're just going to simply type in ipconfig and then press Enter. And we're going to be looking for that IPv4 address. In this case, I can see it's 192.168.10.94. Now to plug in that information on the handheld, I'll choose the Settings option. And then under the Connection option, there's a connection URL. You want to make sure it's that local IP address we just looked at. In this case, it is /FTX handheld. The port, that's generally going to be port 80. But depending on your environment, if you have firewalls or DVRs or things, that can be different. The easiest way to find the port that's going to be utilized is if you press Start on the Start menu and just type in IIS. Choose that Internet Information Services option, and then you'll have your machine. Choose the little drop down here. Choose it one more time under Sites. And this default website, we want to look at the bindings. So I've got the default website highlighted. I've got bindings here, the hyperlink. I'm going to choose that, and I can see that this machine is on port 80. Just going to close out of this, and I've already got port 80 in place. So whenever I choose Keep, it's going to validate that connection. If there's no issue in the connection, then it's automatically going to go away, and I know that I'm good. If there's any kind of error, then I'm going to see that error, and I know I have to touch that setting, that connection string in some way. All right, so I'm going to choose the back button. The connection's good. So now we're ready to log in. So I'm going to choose that red plus button. I'm going to log into my account. And then I'm going to scroll down to the Transfers module. All right, so I'm going to choose the red plus button to get a transfer option. And I now have the option to transfer to my current store, the store that I'm currently at, or from the current store. Now I can see here that I'm at store number 1. So if I'm doing to current store, that means that I'm going to be transferring from another location to the location that I'm at now, one essentially adding to inventory. If I'm transferring from the current store, that means I'm transferring from my store that I'm at right now, store 1, to another location, essentially removing inventory from my location. So I'm going to choose the to current store, choose continue. I'm going to say this transfer is coming from store 2. And I'm going to enter in a note. And then I have the screen that I can actually enter in items. So there's 3 different ways to enter in items on the Android handheld. You can use the built-in barcode scanner if your device has a built-in barcode scanner to scan the product's barcode. You can use the camera option in the very top right corner that allows you to scan the barcode utilizing the built-in camera on the device. And there's the search, which allows you to manually input the UPC. So in this case, I'm going to enter that UPC. I'm going to choose the search button. That'll search and find that UPC. Let's say I'm putting in 5. I can now see that I've got this item on this worksheet at a quantity of 5. Now, if I want to change that, I can simply swipe, and then I can choose either delete, that will remove that row from this transfer, or edit. I can edit the quantity. Optionally, if my device supports it, I can rotate this to go into landscape mode, and then just have a much larger screen to see data. Now, we're going to look at what the red cogwheel does. I'm going to choose that. There's the always scanned 1 option. This functions just like it does in the cycle counts module. Essentially, if you have that toggled on, every time you enter in an item, it's going to append 1, essentially adding 1 to your previous count on that item. So if I scan a single item 5 times, I'm going to have 5 of that. Each one is adding 1 to that total count. I can have that enabled or disabled. There's the rescan prompt. If I have the previous setting that we just discussed disabled, then I have the rescan dialog option. If that is toggled on and I scan the same item twice, I'm going to get an option to either append to my previous count, just like the single scan would be, or I can replace my previous count, meaning whatever the new quantity is that I enter on that, I'm going to be erasing what I've scanned previously and placing in the new count. So essentially an override. And finally, there's the apply to inventory. If you choose that, that's going to apply that count to inventory immediately. Inventory movement occurs directly from the handheld. Now, me personally, I don't prefer doing that. You totally can. That's not wrong doing that in any way. It's just a preference. The reason being is if you just choose the back button here, what that allows the handheld to do is it saves that transfer in the system. So now I can go to Director, I can go to the Inventory module, and then I can see that there's that transfer that I just created and it's not applied. You can see here that there is a transfer that was previously applied. Here, that's the one I just created. It's not applied. So this allows me to open that worksheet up, view that transfer, make sure that the quantities are right, the items are right. If there's any changes that need to take place, I can do that directly from within the worksheet and Director, and then apply it. Or if I just need to totally remove that because possibly corporate's doing that transfer, or it's already been done, I can simply delete the transfer, and that will remove it. So that's why I personally prefer to enter in the transfer on the handheld, but not apply it. All right, so that covers the Android handheld. Now we're going to look at the Windows handheld. All right, so this is the home screen on the Windows handheld. We're going to now do what we did before on the Android side. We're going to configure and make sure that this handheld is pointed to the correct machine. So there's the Config Fast Tracks option. I'm going to choose that. And then I have the server IP address. That's that local IP address that we looked at a little bit before when I pulled up the command prompt. In this case, it's going to be already set and correct. 192.168.10.94. Now notice there's no port option on the Windows handheld. Well, we're going to have to do this the old style. If there's a port other than 80, then you have to manually enter that utilizing a colon and the number itself. So let's just say, for example, my machine was on port 85. What I could do is have that local IP address, put in a colon 85. And then I would choose update. And that's essentially telling the handle to use the local IP address on port 85. Now we know that I'm on port 80, the default. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those three. I'm going to go ahead and choose the update button and then exit. So now it's ready to do a transfer. So I'm going to go to the Fast Tracks PSM button. That's going to open up the main home screen of the actual application itself. And then notice there's not a transfers option here. Well, that's because under the adjustments option, that's where the transfers are going to reside. So I'll choose the adjustments. I'll have to log in. As soon as I get this login prompt. And then under the choose adjustment type dropdown, if you choose that, there's the same options as the Android side. Transfer to and transfer from. So of course, if I do a transfer to, and I put in that transfer store, I could say transfer to store 4. That would be pulling inventory from the store that I'm at and moving it to store 4. If I have the transfer from, and I put in 3, that means that I'm pulling inventory. I'm having a transfer from store 3 and adding it to my store, store 1. So I'm going to enter in, let's just say I'm going to store 2. And then here's my screen where I can enter in the products. Now on the Windows side, you can of course scan using the built-in barcode scanner on the device, or you can use the keypad to actually enter in the UPC manually. Now we're going to look at the options here real fast. There's the keypad number help option, which by default's on because we do want to have the ability to enter in using the keypad. There's the expand 8-digit UPCs. That is if you have a short barcode like on cigarette packs. Those are generally 8 digits, and you want it to extend out to the full 12-digit barcode. 99.9% of the time that is the case. You do want that to be turned on. There's the view previous items. That allows you to view previously scanned items that have been scanned in on this transfer. There's the return to entry, which that just simply carries me to my entry screen. And then finally, there's the apply transfer, that apply to inventory option. So I'm going to go ahead and enter in my UPC here. Enter that. I have my item screen. I can either add in inventory or take away. Let's just say I'm doing a positive 5. And then just like on the Android side, me personally, I prefer to not apply the inventory directly from the handheld. I prefer to review that from within Director. So if I didn't want to apply it, I just use that apply inventory button and it's going to update my inventory quantity. In this case, I'm just going to choose exit. It's going to give me the option, hey, are you sure you want to exit this? You haven't applied it. I'm just going to choose yes because that is what I'm wanting to do. And then in Director, when I refresh this, I'm going to have one more transfer, that unapplied transfer. And then here I can open that worksheet up, view it, make any changes as necessary, and then apply it. Now, as a note, transfers done from handhelds, those are always done at store level. You can't do a transfer at corporate utilizing the handheld because handhelds can't be used, at least at this current time, in a corporate environment. So it follows the same rules as transfers when entering those in through Director or POS at store level. If you enter a transfer at store level, no matter the method, whether it be handheld, POS, or Director. It's only adjusting that store's inventory. You have to do the same transfer at the transferee store, either the to or from store that is involved in that transfer that you're not locally at. You have to do the same transfer at that location in order for inventory to be moved at both places. If you do it in just one of those, then that inventory is either just added magically out of nowhere to the store that you're at if you're doing a to that store, or it's in the nowhere land if it's pulled from that location and not added into inventory via transfer at the other location. It's just pulled out and it's nowhere. So be sure to keep that in mind. All right, well, that covers transfers in both the Windows CE handheld and Android handheld. Once again, you can see a list of all these webinar events if you go to our website, goftx.com. Choose the FTX Lifeline tab at the top of the page. Scroll down just a bit and look for that webinar button. And this will show you a list of all of our previous webinars where you can view the recording, upcoming webinars where you can sign up for a reminder, search feature, and the option to sign up for the newsletter. If you have any questions on this topic, let us know at websupport@fasttrackspos.com. And if you have any suggestions for future webinar topics, let us know at info@goftx.com. Thank you and have a great weekend.